Focus is brought to you by Envision Financial, where achieving your goals starts with the right advice and financial tools to help you thrive. Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Today, we're interviewing a person that I've interviewed before, and she has changed her profession. So the perspective in today's program is going to be slightly different. And she is a very enigmatic young woman. Her name is Shachi Kurl. She is the president of the Angus Reid Institute. Shachi, you're most welcome in our program. How are you doing?
It always makes me so happy whenever I can sit down with you.
Isn't it just?
And it doesn't happen enough. We've come through a year and a half of not doing it. So I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I'm so glad that you're here. Last time when I interviewed you, and you said, let's not talk about that, but I do want to talk about it because, you know, you were a star at a broadcast institution. You're a journalist by profession, and you were working.
I'm still a star. Come on.
You're right.
I'm kidding.
You're right.
I'm kidding.
You're right. Correction needed here. So, star, you've come to another place. Let's talk about the change from a broadcast institution to a research institution. Why?
Look, my first love was journalism,
Yes.
was broadcasting,
Yes.
was reporting from the earliest age, probably from the age of 11 or 12. But you know and I know that the dream and the reality don't always meet up. And I'm so proud to see so many South Asian young women in newsrooms now. It just makes my heart sing to see how far they're coming.
Yes.
My experience, I have no regrets.
Right.
I had a good run as a broadcast journalist, as a political reporter. I was in Victoria for many years covering the legislature.
Yes.
Covered the downfall of one premier, one opposition leader, several finance ministers, several members of cabinet. It was fun. Not at their expense, but it was just an exciting time to see politics and reporting up close. But as the time went by, we know the brutality of what it is to work in a newsroom these days. The internet and all of the things that have gutted newsrooms and local news. And in the last few years, you've seen investment kind of coming as a reaction to it. So there have been calls to government to help shore up local newsrooms. There's different initiatives being funded by different philanthropic organizations. I think that's fantastic. At my time, was very aware. I had survived a number of rounds of newsroom layoffs.
Right.
And was very aware that any day the tap can come on the shoulder and say, we don't have the resources for you to cover this job anymore. You can come back, you can do this role, you can do this role, you can do this, you can do that, but you can't do what you love doing. And that's always like a piano on a very thin thread hanging over your head, right?
That's not very good.
It's not a good feeling.
No.
And so around that time, there was another employer, another institution that came to me and asked me if I was interested in a change in career. And to be honest with you, at the time I wasn't. I loved what I was doing. I didn't want to leave. Why should I leave? I like it. But I sort of thought about it. Do I want to be doing exactly what I'm doing a year from now? Yes. Do I want to be doing it 6 years from now? Exactly what I'm doing, no change, no progression, no move up, no room to move up. There was no path to go.
Yes.
Maybe not. Do I want to be doing it 10 years from now? Probably not. Do I want to be like many colleagues I had seen who found themselves out of a job and not ready for that and no prospects in terms of what am I going to do next, and they're kind of just sitting there with the cardboard box and then having to make it up as they go along. I wanted to be in control of my exit. So when an opportunity arose, I took the tough decision and I moved on, and it was very heartbreaking at the time. Like, for many months I couldn't even watch television news. It was so painful.
I know. I was just going to say to you, it must have been a very traumatic, in a way, experience, because mentally you were still there. Physically you were not.
But isn't that every transition? I think of our parents, they leave their country of origin, their
Yes.
country of birth. They leave their family, they
Yes.
leave their culture, they leave their language, and they come to Canada, and mentally they're still there, but
Yeah.
they're here. So we have to make transitions in life. And looking back, I have absolutely no regrets.
I'm so glad that
Like, I love it. I love what I'm doing now.
It's great that you've come to that realization, but it's taken you some time. Having said that, the time that you took to transit from one to another might have been painful, but in that pain too, there is learning.
Life is learning. Every day is learning. Every day is. I had some snafu this weekend, and I thought it wasn't professional. It was a home decor snafu, and it was like, I'm never going to make that mistake again, ever. Like, some things you learn, and then you learn them so well. So no, I would just say that it was a period of transition.
Yes.
But then the opportunities afforded. I had and have a wonderful employer. I have an incredible amount of support in terms of my colleagues and the people around me at work. And it has afforded us the opportunity at the Institute, and we'll talk a little bit about what I do,
Yes.
to sort of chart our own path and to be our own thing and do our own thing. And so every day is something new, and every day is some new level of, okay, well, we've forged that path, or we've made this achievement. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Also, you also look at a situation not being in it, but from outside. Look into it, right?
There's a level of deeper understanding. So what I used to do is tell stories
Yes.
with words and pictures.
Right.
I worked in journalism, and both in print media and in broadcast. So either you're telling it with images,
Right.
with pictures, go film this, go shoot that, or you're telling it with words, you're interviewing people and relaying their quotes. But you're using people and situations to tell a story of what's going on. Now I use numbers, I use data. So, and trust me, like, when you go to journalism school and study television, you do it specifically so you don't have to do math. But see, this is just like another parental lesson. Like, beta, you should take math 12. You should take it. I'm like, I'm never going to need it. No, you never know. It's like, yeah, it came back. There's no running from it.
Let's take a short commercial break and come to it.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Shachi is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back catching up with math. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Shachi Kurl is our woman in focus today. I love your name because it's a tongue twister. Do you find people being able to say your name properly or not? Is that another story?
Every day is like, how will my name be massacred today? But what drives me craziest is not people outside of our community who struggle with it.
It's within the community.
It's within the community. And my favorite is when the Uncle G's tell me I'm saying my own name wrong. Sometimes it's Auntie G's too.
Your
but
name
mostly,
is Shachi.
Your name is Shachi. No.
No, it isn't.
It's not.
It's not. It's
Or
Shachi.
Your name is Sachi. No. No, it's not. No, beta, your name is Shachi. And I'm like, I think I know my own name.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sanji.
It's beautiful to have, your parents must have not loved you very much when you were born.
Well, you've interviewed my dad before. I suggest you take it up with him directly.
I think I will do that. Shachi,
It
let's
was
talk.
his choice.
What a fantastic choice. You know what a unique person you are. So he must have looked at you and said, this is a unique child. We've got to give her a unique name.
I don't know. You're going to have to go to, I have no insight into this.
So let's talk about Angus Reid Institute. And you said numbers. So obviously you guys choose a topic and then you ask people their opinions because it's a non-profit organization. Let's talk about Angus Reid. When did Angus Reid come into being and what is your role in it? You're the president, I understand.
Okay. Well, Angus Reid is a real person. who
Okay.
came into being on December 17th, 1947.
Oh, a year younger to me.
Yeah, he's my boss, my
He's a
mentor,
boss.
my friend, my
Okay.
employer.
Okay.
He is Canada's foremost pollster.
All right.
So when we talk about polls, we're talking about public opinion polling or public opinion surveys. And these surveys are conducted of samples of Canadian people or any group of people to help understand using a smaller population, which we call a sample, what the larger population, the country, the nation, the province, the city is thinking, the people of any group or demographic, any group of people or segment of people are thinking about any one thing. And so this is something that is, I mean, in media stories, obviously, there's a lot of reporting about polls, particularly political polls. So a lot of it in the United States during Trump and Biden and Obama and this and that. And of course, we're talking about maybe an election coming up in Canada. So it's always, what are the politicians doing? But this is a research technique that's also used in market research. You want to sell more cans of soup. You want more people to watch Sushma Ji's show. So she has to understand, what do people like about the broadcast, what do they not like about the broadcast. You might commission a poll. The work we do at the Institute, which is founded by Angus, and we founded it almost 7 years ago now.
Right.
Is to do that work without any fear or any influence from commercial people, from businesses, from clients, because a lot of times the issue is not that polls are influenced by a client or a company that says, okay, I want a poll and I want it to say X. Sometimes that does happen, but not very often. Usually what happens instead is that polling organizations, because they have a big client, they don't want to offend them, so maybe they won't look at an issue that might be on the wrong side of their client. So as a result, my favorite anecdote for this, I won't name names, but it was a very high level sports media executive. Okay, we're going back several years now, but people who watch hockey, they will remember these names. So this was just after Don Cherry had retired from hosting Hockey Night in Canada, and they'd brought in George Stroumboulopoulos. We do this poll at the Institute, and we find out that 75% of hockey fans in Canada cannot stand the new host. They are, and they had gotten rid of Ron MacLean, and people are like, "Where's Ron MacLean?" The executive, now this poll had been self-commissioned, and I'll talk about what we do in a second. So nobody paid for this. We just said, we're all good Canadian hockey fans. Let's find out what's going on. Let's do it. Like, because what's going on? So what do people think? This executive saw the results and was very unhappy and starts yelling at me and calls me up on Thanksgiving evening and is like, who do you think you are? And why didn't you tell me about this? And I'll never spend another penny with you again. And I'm like, Ed, so we're a not-for-profit. I have nothing to do with you. We've never spoken on the phone before. And we will not stop looking at these issues because we have the freedom to choose the issues we want to look at. Now, hockey is a fun issue, but imagine how this relates to banking or mortgages or immigration or lots of different issues, climate change, et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. If you think about all of the constraints in the business world that pollsters might have if they worry about losing clients, we're a not-for-profit organization, we're an independent organization. In our mandate, what we aim to do is to provide this good quality information that nobody has influenced from one side or from another. And like this is just the straight up information with no top spin,
no strings attached,
no strings attached. And if it's useful to you, use it, think about it, consume it, read about it. And if it's not useful to you, no problem. But we know, for example, that lots of people are watching our work. And what had happened over many decades is that governments used to commission polls, but then they used to release the results. But then the politicians started going, well, that's not very convenient for us. That puts us in a difficult, so they stopped doing it. Again, media used to commission lots of polls, but they have no budget to keep employees. They certainly have no budget to commission polls.
So that brings me to the most important question. How do you guys fund yourself? It's a non-profit.
Yes.
So that means that you guys are not there to do a poll and make money off of it.
Yeah.
But somebody must be paying you.
Well, somebody pays me.
Yeah. You know.
I didn't win the lottery. So going back to Angus,
yes,
he's the chairman and the founder of the Institute.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, he is sort of the pioneer of polling in Canada. He's been polling in Canada since 1977. He built 2 worldwide companies, sold them.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to do this for profit anymore.
Okay.
And so a great deal of what we do is founded through the Reid Family Trust, very generously. And just like, there's less of a tradition of it in Canada, but if you look at the United States,
yes, huge there.
There are family foundations and trusts that fund, so the Carnegie Foundation, the Pew Foundation. If you look at India, you know what the Birlas do, or what other big families do, and they just fund they fund good works, and they fund important works in different ways. And so this is what the Reid family does. And then we also work with other organizations. Sometimes they have a little bit of budget and it's a really good issue that they want to look at. So we'll say, okay, we'll work with you, but ultimately we keep the editorial control so that you are not buying a result. You are helping us fund an inquiry into a good issue.
That's a very good point. I want to take a very short commercial break, but come back. And there are many other topics that I want to discuss with you, but I don't think we'll tackle all of them. But let's
Why not? Put on your helmet.
Yes.
We'll just tackle all of them.
Shachi is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Women in Focus is brought to you by Envision Financial, where achieving your goals starts with the right advice and financial tools to help you thrive. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Shachi Kurl. Polling is now you eat polling, you breathe polling, you digest polling, right?
Yes.
Are you very happy doing that? And how do you come up with questions or topics? Like, you know, hockey was one. Do you come up with topics yourselves as well, or people come up to you and say, you have to do this?
It's very collaborative. We definitely take ideas from, if viewers have some ideas, they can tell you and you can pass them on, and if it's a good idea, we'll look at it. We're very, very privileged to be able to look at anything that we want to. We try to focus on issues that are really important and in general have not been looked at before in great depth. So for example, you know, look at what happened in the last year and a half with the pandemic and long-term care, and what happened in long-term care facilities, and how our elders had really terrible outcomes, right? It went very badly. We want to understand, okay, now as we're emerging from it, how should this be regulated? Should there be changes? Do Canadians think there should be changes? Do Canadians have an appetite to pay more income tax in order to fund these changes? Because it's easy to say we want changes or we want more funding, but how do you do it? How do you do it? Who should have more say? Should it be the federal government, or should it be the provincial government that traditionally operates healthcare? So we can look at all of these issues. It's a blank canvas. And so it's endlessly fascinating. We try to really focus on, as I say, issues that are dominating sort of the conversations that we know people are having. So over the last year and a half, again during the pandemic, we did every topic you could think of under the sun related to the pandemic. But as we're coming out of it, we're focusing on, okay, what are people's views on Indigenous reconciliation, or this, or this, or this? So we run it a little bit like a newsroom. People have their ideas. Certainly the chairman has his ideas. I have my ideas. The rest of our team has ideas. We discuss our ideas and we go for it. It's a bit like a news meeting.
I want to do another interview with you in which we talk about the changing face of our community and the changing face of the Canadian. Now we are Canadians, right? I mean, I sometimes look at myself and I would ask you this question, or my son, are you Indian or are you Canadian? And I now started saying to myself, I'm Canadian of Indian origin. And I do remember saying I'm an Indo-Canadian. And I'm no longer that. And so how does that happen?
Well, I can tell you from data, the longer you are in this country, the more likely, even if you're born outside of the country, the longer you've been here, the more likely you are to feel like you are that Canadian first. But for people who are here, now that doesn't mean that that there isn't a core part of your being, your culture, your sense of self that isn't rooted somewhere else. But as you put it, you've now spent more of your life here than you have anywhere else.
Anywhere else in the world, yeah.
Same for my parents, same for lots of people, lots of my aunties and uncles. They've been in, so, I mean, you should get a whole panel of them together and get them to explain it. But attachment to Canada is a really interesting thing. And when we ask people, are you proud to be Canadian? How connected do you feel to Canada? What is the root of that connection? 40, 50 years ago, it used to be like, oh, just pride or nationalism or queen and country, like sort of the colonial structures.
Yes.
Now with the young people, younger generations, sort of those 24 or under, they do feel a sense of connection to Canada, but they're also sort of citizens of the world. They grew up in the internet era. They grew up in it. You can get any music, any entertainment, anything from anywhere. So it's not like you're listening to Canadian. They were not subjected to Celine Dion the way we were. So as a result, their sense of Canadian culture and connection to Canada is based on more practical things. Like if I have the prospect of a good standard of living here, if I feel like I can move up, if I feel like I can be successful, I feel connected to Canada. But it's less of like an imposed connection that used to come through culture and other things.
Wow.
CanCon.
There's so many things we can talk about.
There is.
But you know, our time is up.
Okay.
Huh?
I'll stop now.
Done.
Okay.
Thank you for being a woman in focus. We have to do a few series like that.
Okay.
Done?
I'll come back.
All right.
All right.
That is Shachi Kurl, who was a woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Women in Focus is brought to you by Envision Financial, where achieving your goals starts with the right advice and financial tools to help you thrive.